Welcome back to the Short Game Podcast. It is Thursday, March 19th. You want to be successful, but you want it to look pretty. You want the aesthetic morning routine, the cool title, and the cinematic montage. But the second the process actually gets ugly, you fold. You quit your diet when you stop losing a pound a day, and you quit your project the second it stops being fun. If you want to actually build something great, you have to accept that the middle phase is always a nightmare. Today, we are reading the ultimate reality check for anyone trying to build an empire, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. We are going to talk about how Nike was not built on clever marketing, but on decades of crushing debt, broken logistics, and a sheer refusal to quit. I'm Drew Meitner. From the outside, NexYear looks like a sleek luxury brand that deals with VIPs and high-end aesthetics. But behind the scenes, it is a war room of vendor negotiations, broken supply chains, and fixing problems in the dirt. An operator embraces the ugly phase. Let's get into it.
What's your name?
My name is Tom Shelby.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
King Ragnar. That is my name.
Yo soy Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria.
I'm Batman.
This is Jon Snow. He's king in the north.
My name is Asax Schrader.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Antonio Montana.
My name is Patrick Bateman.
My name is Walter Hartwell White.
My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus.
Welcome to episode 29 of the podcast. This is the Untouchable Operator Week, and today we are tearing down the facade of success. We are talking about the ugly reality of achieving anything significant in this world. Everybody wants the final reward, but everybody wants the process to look perfectly pretty. We live in an era where everyone expects their journey to look exactly like a cinematic montage. You want the aesthetic photos, the beautifully filtered videos, the clean desks, and the inspiring background music. But let me hit you with the cold, hard, unvarnished truth right now. Whether it is losing 50 pounds, surviving a brutal college semester, or starting a business from scratch, the middle phase is always undeniably ugly. If you quit simply because it stops being fun, you are nothing but a spectator. An untouchable operator does not run away when the system inevitably falls apart. An untouchable operator wades right into the mess, gets their hands dirty, and refuses to stop moving. Today, our book focus is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the legendary founder of Nike. When you look at Nike today, you see a globally dominant, multi-billion-dollar empire. You see legendary athletes like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods, and you see sleek, high-tech athletic gear everywhere. But for the first decade of its existence, the company was a chaotic, high-stress, debt-ridden nightmare. Phil Knight did not survive and build this massive empire because he was some kind of infallible business genius. He survived because he possessed a sheer refusal to quit when absolutely every single part of his business was falling apart. Let us dive deep into the brutal reality of how Nike was actually built. In the very beginning, there was no cool branding, no brilliant marketing strategy, and certainly no nice office. Phil Knight was just a young kid from Oregon who went to Japan and bluffed his way into a distribution deal with a shoe company called Onitsuka. He brought back a few hundred pairs of shoes and started selling them straight out of the trunk of his vomit green Plymouth Valiant. He would drive all over the Pacific Northwest, stopping at local track meets, chatting up coaches and runners in the dirt and the rain. He was literally operating a business out of his car, storing extra inventory in the cramped basement of his parents' house. His bedroom was the old servants' quarters, and he worked a demanding day job as an accountant just to keep himself fed. There was absolutely nothing glamorous about this grueling phase of his life. As the company, originally called Blue Ribbon Sports, began to grow, the problems did not magically disappear. In fact, the problems only magnified in scale, cost, and intensity. The ugliest part of the Nike journey was the constant, suffocating weight of sheer financial terror. Phil Knight operated his company on the absolute brink of total bankruptcy for years on end. His core business strategy was simple but incredibly risky, which was that you either grow or you die. Every single time he sold out of his inventory, he would take every penny he made and plow it directly back into the next, larger order. He intentionally maintained a cash balance of exactly zero, which drove his conservative bankers absolutely out of their minds. He had to regularly walk into the First National Bank and literally beg hostile bankers for money to float his inventory. His primary banker, a severe man named Bob Wallace, despised Knight's aggressive strategy and constantly threatened to cut off his credit entirely. The bankers fetishized the word equity, a word Phil Knight grew to utterly despise with every fiber of his being. Every single day was a desperate scramble to find enough cash to cover the massive checks he was writing to his overseas suppliers. They were living on the float, constantly trying to outrun their own mounting debts and logistical nightmares. The physical logistics of the operation were in absolute shambles from day one. Knight and his earliest employees worked in a freezing, run-down office space situated right next door to a raucous dive bar called the Pink Bucket. The walls were so incredibly thin that they could hear the jukebox thumping through the plywood while they desperately tried to pack shoeboxes. They could not even afford to fix the broken glass in their windows, so they just wore heavy winter sweaters while they worked. And the international supply chain was an absolute catastrophe. Onitsuka, their Japanese supplier, was chronically and dangerously late with almost every single shipment they promised. When the shoes finally did arrive on the cargo boats, the shipments were often completely wrong. They would receive the wrong shoe models, the wrong quantities, and the wrong sizes entirely. They would have thousands of size 6 shoes and almost no size 10s, leaving them unable to fulfill their orders. You cannot build a pretty, aesthetic business when your primary supplier treats you with such blatant, continuous disregard. But the ugly reality got even worse when the corporate betrayal started. Phil Knight discovered that Onitsuka was secretly plotting to break their contract and give the lucrative United States distribution rights to someone else. An arrogant executive named Kitami actually traveled to the United States and began interviewing replacement distributors right behind Knight's back. Knight discovered this devastating betrayal by literally stealing a folder out of Kitami's briefcase while the executive went to the bathroom during a meeting. Imagine the sheer, paralyzing stress of that moment, holding the stolen evidence of your own company's impending execution in your shaking hands. Knight did not fold, he did not cry foul, and he did not quit. He quickly found secret replacement factories in Mexico and Japan, scrambling to launch his own independent brand before Onitsuka could pull the rug out from under him. This was the chaotic, incredibly messy birth of the actual Nike brand. They literally chose the name Nike at the very last minute, right before the factory started production, simply because they had run out of time. They paid exactly $35 to a starving graphic design student for the swoosh logo, which Knight openly admitted he did not even really like. There was no grand, cinematic moment of creative genius inside a pristine boardroom. It was just a group of stressed-out, overworked operators making rapid-fire decisions in the dirt to keep their fragile company alive. When they finally introduced the first Nike shoes at the National Sporting Goods Association show in Chicago, the shoes were terribly flawed. The leather was shiny in a bad way, the paint looked wet, and the swoosh logos were completely crooked. Knight sat in his display booth, put his heavy head in his hands, and felt like he was staring directly into the abyss of complete failure. But they stood up, faced the hostile salesman, and sold the defective shoes anyway through sheer, relentless force of will. Even when they broke free from Onitsuka and won a grueling legal battle, the agonizing nightmares did not end. At one point, their magical financial juggling act finally caught up with them. Their primary bank suddenly froze their accounts and completely refused to honor any more of their checks. Phil Knight had no money to make payroll, and he had absolutely no money to pay his mounting list of angry creditors. The bank actually notified the FBI because they suspected Blue Ribbon Sports of committing massive intentional financial fraud. Knight went home that night, sat in his recliner in the dark, and genuinely wondered if he was going to federal prison. His company was saved only because a massive Japanese trading company named Nisho stepped in at the final hour and paid off the bank. And even then, the United States government came after them with a vengeance. The Customs Service hit Nike with a retroactive bill for $25 million, claiming they owed massive import duties based on an archaic law. This was a dirty trick orchestrated by their American competitors to artificially inflate tariffs and wipe Nike off the map forever. Knight had to constantly commute to Washington, battle arrogant bureaucratic monsters, and fight his own government just to keep his doors open. He spent months raging in his office, smashing his telephone to pieces in sheer, unadulterated frustration. This is the brutal, unrelenting reality of building something genuinely great. Phil Knight spent over a decade putting out massive fires, fighting off existential lawsuits, dodging imminent bankruptcy, and dealing with broken inventory. There was absolutely no aesthetic montage playing in the background. There was only massive stress, broken logistics, and an unbreakable commitment to keep moving forward. He surrounded himself with a misfit group of employees they affectionately called the butt faces. They were accountants, lawyers, and ex-runners who yelled at each other, drank too much, and worked themselves down to the bone. They were not glamorous executives, but they were true untouchable operators. They succeeded because they embraced the absolute ugliness of the highly competitive arena they had chosen to step into. They understood that if you truly want to win, you have to be willing to bleed, sweat, and panic in the dark. Now, let us carefully bridge the gap and connect these dots directly to your reality. From the outside looking in, my business, NexYear, looks like a sleek, high-end luxury brand. If you look at our public footprint, you see us dealing seamlessly with VIPs, high net worth individuals, and powerful CEOs. You see the polished aesthetic, the premium content, and the flawless final product delivered directly to the consumer. But I am telling you right now, behind the scenes, NexYear is an absolute war room. It is a daily, grueling battle in the muddy trenches. Behind that luxury facade, my team and I are aggressively hunting down incredibly late shipments that constantly threaten to derail our entire timeline. We are on the phone furiously fighting with vendors over highly specific custom leather specs because the factory tried to cut corners. We are carrying the massive, crushing weight of a complex physical supply chain that constantly threatens to snap under the pressure. When a critical logistics route unexpectedly breaks down in the middle of the night, I do not get to post an aesthetic photo on Instagram. I have to roll up my sleeves, get down in the dirt, and fix the broken system immediately. Just like Phil Knight frantically moving money around to cover a bouncing check, I have to manage the brutal realities of actual physical production. You simply cannot build a high-end empire without ruthlessly navigating the absolute chaos of the back-end operations. And this is the universal sovereign standard that you must forcefully apply to your own life today. I do not care if your ultimate goal is losing 50 pounds, surviving a brutal academic semester, or scaling a startup company. The middle phase of your journey is always going to be intensely ugly. You are going to face hostile environments, broken promises, and terrifying moments where your bank account is hovering right at zero. You are going to experience dark days where everything goes wrong, your systems break, and the pigeon dirt falls directly onto your desk. The problem is that society has conditioned you to expect a smooth, glamorous ride straight to the top. You eagerly want the crown, but you absolutely refuse to carry the heavy, unglamorous weight that comes directly with it. The second your journey stops looking like a motivational movie montage, you immediately start looking for a convenient excuse to quit. The second your vendor betrays you, or your logistics fail, or your body physically aches, you throw your hands up and call yourself a victim. If you quit simply because the process stops being fun, you are nothing but a spectator in the game of life. A spectator watches safely from the clean, comfortable stands, demanding premium entertainment without ever taking a single personal risk. But an untouchable operator deliberately and aggressively embraces the ugly phase. An untouchable operator inherently knows that true success is forged in the dirty, stressful, broken moments that make weak people quit. You have to completely eradicate the toxic expectation that your path to greatness is going to be pretty. It is going to be a brutal war. It is going to be messy, exhausting, and filled with massive logistical nightmares that completely test your sanity. Stop expecting the process to be fun. Embrace the dirt, fix the broken pieces, and absolutely refuse to quit. Look at the goal you are currently struggling with. Are you thinking about quitting just because it stopped being fun? Are you upset because the reality of the work does not match the fantasy in your head? Stop complaining. It is supposed to be hard. It is supposed to be stressful, and it is supposed to be ugly. If you quit now, you were never an operator to begin with. Embrace the dirt and just refuse to stop moving. Tomorrow we are closing out the week with the ultimate cheat code for chaos. We are reading Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. We are going to break down how to build a life, a mind, and a business that actually gets stronger when things go wrong. Go handle your business.